Hey guys, Matt here again, trying to keep it simple. Um, Looking through my videos that I've made, introduction of the Mustang. You guys can probably tell already that I'm learning as I go. Some of the information that I put on there, not quite correct or current. So just wanted to throw out a little update. One of the videos I showed was me painting the trim work on the Mustang. I want to say, said I was sanding off, starting with 220, 400, and then like 1,000 grit, which is not correct. So to update that, what I actually did was sanded it, the plastic trim and the metal trim with 220 before the primer, primed it, and then 400 after the primer. Now the paint needs something to actually grab a hold to, so the 400 grit scratches were perfect for that. Paint down lays down nice and thin. So just a little update on that. 1,000 grit is way too fine. Won't give anything for the paint to stick to. Another one was that I was planning on doing some touch-up painting and decided to go for the whole kit and caboodle and sand down the whole entire car. Plan on putting some more pictures of the progress that I've made. This is kind of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing, because I'm learning as I go. Never done this stuff in my life. Just trying to give a real life situation here on somebody who doesn't have any experience doing this, doing it. So with the amount of chips, scratches, and the swirl mark bubbles on the paint, since I was going to have to sand it down and spray in that area, I decided to just paint the whole entire car. Now, the mistakes that I've made so far is kind of skipping steps. You know, this journey of painting a car takes a lot of work. It's simple. It really is. But when you skip steps, you're making more problems for yourself. And in some of the pictures that I plan on posting, it shows the car completely in high build primer. Well, high build primer is only able to take out scratches and chips. It's not really created to eliminate the highs and the lows of a vehicle. And the body looked completely straight when it was all painted when I got it. It looked amazing. First mistake I made was when I was sanding it down. Just used an electric sander, sanded everything down. Well, by doing that, I might have created some unevenness, some highs and lows just in the sanding process of doing it. My recommendation is to, sure, use the electric sander, eliminate the clear coat, get into the original paint, but then from there, complete your rest of your sanding by block sanding and keeping it as flat as possible. That'll take away some of the work from having to use body filler. Another thing is, since I am a newbie, can't just sand it, body fill it, move on to the next step, the whole entire car. I've decided to just do one panel at a time. So right now what I've done is I've got the Mustang completely all wrapped up. Underneath, it's all in primer, has guide coat everywhere all over it. And that's when I noticed that there's definitely some highs and there's some lows. If you just look at the front of the hood here, it's definitely not as straight as I thought it would be. You know, when it was fully painted, everything looked fantastic. You couldn't tell. But what we're looking at here is definitely some highs and some lows. The really high spot being the metal that's starting to stick out just a tad. Secondary high spot being the red paint, because I didn't sand it all the way down to metal. There were spots that it got all the way down to metal, and those apparently are the high spots. But decided to go all in and go back to square one decided to concentrate on just the hood to see if I can get it right. Notice a lot of body filler on it. Notice a bunch of high marks, which I stopped sanding. That way I can put some more body filler in. This is my second go around. Already tried to sand it flat. Noticed a bunch of high spots, so I stopped, cleaned it all up, put the body filler back on. I'm gonna go for another round of sanding. And if you've never done this before, probably best if you just start with one piece. Learn as you go, and then be able to, bring your experience into the next panel and the next panel and the next panel. The front of the hood's looking great. I mean, like I said, I skipped steps. I ended up priming the entire car, ended up sanding down the hood, and as you can tell, there's nothing in the middle right now. I high build primered it first, which you're supposed to epoxy primer at first to seal in and for water moisture barrier, and then do the high build primer. Well, all I did was the high build primer on the hood. Coming to sand this primer down, which you're really only supposed to be flattening it out and smoothing it out with 400 grit, maybe 600 grit, before applying another round of epoxy after the first round of epoxy. Well, I'm sanding it down now with 80, trying to get back to a flush, flat panel. And when you get down through half of the high build primer, that high build primer begins to get really difficult to sand. So back to square one. Gonna be putting a layer of body filler over the top of that. Excuse me. What that also does is build it up high enough, because the high build primer, and the reason it didn't work, I'll show you over here, you got a really high spot right here, and the high build primer just didn't build it up high enough in order to flatten it all the way out, because that's not what high build primer's designed for. It just eliminates scratches and chips. So went back to square one, body filler. Keep your concentration on just that. Sand down the car, sand it down as flat as you possibly can, and eliminate the amount of work you're going to have to do with body filler. And then when you get to the body filler stage, concentrate on just the body filler stage and concentrate on just one panel. Because if you do one panel, you can do the whole car. And somebody with no experience like myself, I'm going 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards. I'm back to the body filling stage, and trying to get this done. I know guys can whip this out in an hour, 2 hours. This is going to take me a week. Never done it before, so I'm just trying to get it as smooth, beautiful as I possibly can. Another part of the reason why I decided to paint the car is because the car's beautiful in the red that it came in. It's got a little orange tint to it, which I don't really care for. I want a pure 100% red. Not on the light side where it's orangish or pinkish. Not on the dark side where it's maroon or purple. I want a 100% dead accurate red. So that's what I'm doing. I'm back to the basics. I got sidetracked, took myself away from the whole keeping it simple idea. So I'm keeping it simple. One hood, body filler stage, nothing else. Let's get this panel flat before I move on to the next step. So that's my advice. That's what I've learned so far. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep it focused on the one step. Let's get this panel nice and flat, nice and square. And then I'm going to sand it down with 80 to 120 to 220. Finish it off with 400. And then I'm going to put the epoxy primer on like I should have in the first place. That way it seals it in everything. Nice little moisture barrier, protects the bare metal, protects the metal underneath the paint that I didn't quite sand down to. And then I'll be using the high build primer. And again, sanding that down with 400 before moving on to a final epoxy primer, base coat, clear coat. So if you're anything like me, never done this before, you can definitely learn from my mistakes by watching my videos. If you don't want to go this route, your body looks straight, and you just want to get a new, fresh look on it, you definitely don't need to go all the way down to the metal. You don't need to use the body filler. You can simply sand it down as flat as you possibly can. Start with your epoxy primer. Put your high build primer on there that eliminates scratches and chips. Because the body looks straight when I first started, when it was fully painted, when I first got the car. So if just using epoxy primer, high build primer, eliminate the scratches and the chips, end with 400, go to base coat, go to clear coat, call it good. Don't have to go all the way to the extreme that I'm going and getting the body as flat and straight and perfect as I am. You can basically skip that body filler stage if your car was just looking great when it was painted. So anyways, I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.